Hello and welcome. I've just changed the channel name to Turtle Island Touch. My name's Nicholas. I'm a gender fluid person of trans experience, a Christian patriot. I have bipolar disorder. I'm going to be reading again today from Bernhard Guenther's Substack, Time of Transition. Bernhard Guenther hosts a podcast with his wife Laura. They can be found at veilofreality.com. In disclosure, I'm a paying member of Veil of Reality, the website. I disagree with Bernhard quite frequently, and though I may read this, the way that Bernhard's work triggers my concepts, suppose it's worthwhile. So if you hear me lash out at Bernhard based on what I read in this article, that's all reflective of my present state of consciousness. Often I don't like what I read. He's an integration specialist. I find trouble with the notion to integrate the East and the West. He just loves it. He often will provide quotes from... He does quotes, this... I'm not going to read that article now. I'm going to read his earlier one. Yeah, his latest article is called The Essence of Conscious Relationship Divine Union Begins with Anima, Animus, Integration, something like that. Which, he has a focus on the hidden theosophy, yoga. Personally, I see Bernhard Guenther as a divine enemy. So here I'm going to read this article, Why This is a Spiritual War and Why Spiritual Work is a Battle. It may be useful to refer to, and I mean no ill intent while reading his article, and in disclosure, I'm a paying member of his website. If you have interest in some of these subjects, I'd highly recommend exploring Bernhard's Substack at your own pace and enjoying his podcast. His podcast is called The Cosmic Matrix. I initially found this fellow on Instagram and had a gut reaction that was quite negative. And then I thought, there might be something here that I need to actually analyze. Spiritual work is a battle. Okay, the subtitle, and I'm going to actually, of course, I have to. I haven't done one of these in a few months. My process here is to number each subtopic. And yes, I'm running out of coffee. I may stop midway through to refill my cup And in that case, I'll just leave my chair and come back in 5 minutes. So here's the subtitle: Facing the Initiatory Crisis of Our Times and What It Demands of the Soul. What's useful for me is analyzing Bernhard's language, which is advanced. Here he uses it in how AI generated image, how perfectly succinct, how perfect. So it looks like a warrior at a great city with sun shining through heavy clouds. We are living through an intensifying spiritual war at a pivotal moment in human evolution. Esoteric traditions from both the East and West have long identified this era as the time of transition, a threshold where the fate of humanity hinges not only on our outer choices, but also on our level of consciousness, soul embodiment, and most importantly, what we align ourselves with. At the same time, some people take issue with the terms spiritual warfare, spiritual warrior, excuse me. They believe we should move away from warlike language and speak only of peace, unity, and love. Some argue that if we are evolving into higher consciousness, we should use, quote, higher frequency language and avoid terms that sound too negative, aggressive, or outdated. Now, in my recent video, I just posted a video yesterday afternoon about the imposed duality regarding high frequency. What is a high frequency? And I made note that many of our important and deepest emotions that provide purpose for our journey, they would not ordinarily be classified with the higher frequency vibrations, which people consider to be joy. People consider joy to be the highest frequency. And this is particularly what I'm diving into at the moment. So this type of concept, obviously I'm here for a reason. I'm not trying to polarize. I'm working on integration. So I'm enthused about reading this sentence. I'm going to read the sentence again. Some argue that if we are evolving into higher consciousness, we should only use higher frequency language and avoid terms that sound too negative, aggressive, or outdated. Okay, subtopic 1. The misunderstanding of spiritual warfare. Let me check the volume. It's a little quiet, I guess. Can I turn that up a little bit? Can I turn that up at all? Okay. Others claim that spiritual work is not a battle at all. They say that by calling it such, we make it harder on ourselves, that we create our reality through the words we use and therefore should focus only on love and light. Real spiritual work tells a different story. As you go deeper beyond self-help trends, beyond new age positivity, and beyond the mental scaffolding of, quote, high vibes only, end quote, you will begin to see that the path of awakening is a confrontation. You come face to face with forces, both inner and outer, that do not want you to awaken, on both the personal and collective levels. The avoidance of the process is known as spiritual bypass. It is a part of it is part of how spiritual work has been corrupted, distorted, and diluted, morphed into a pop spirituality that has stripped true esoteric and psycho-spiritual work of its depth, fire, and initiatory rigor. It reminds me of what Jungian psychologist James Hillman said about how the complex and disturbing have been reduced to packaged formulas of what spiritual growth is, quote, supposed to look like. He joked that many New Age and pop spiritual authors could compile their works into one large volume titled, quote, How to Become Aware of the Depths of Your Being Without Disturbing the Routine of Your Comfortable Lifestyle. Subtopic 2. I'm not going to be able to sit here that long. I gotta shift my ass. Subtopic 2. The battle within. Ego, soul, and the hidden forces. The truth is, if you sincerely engage in psycho-spiritual work to find the truth of your being and let the divine force guide your life, it will uproot everything in your life that is not aligned with it. Your ego, with all its attachments and desires, will not like it and will resist it. It will come up with all kinds of reasons and justifications for why you can't engage in the work, and why now is not the right time, that you're not ready, that you have more important things to do. Or, in the most cunning of all deceptions, it will convince you that you're already, quote, awake, that you've transcended the need for further inner work, and that you're, quote, special and somehow above others. That's the ego's favorite excuse, most often augmented by thought injections of occult adverse spiritual forces which you mistake as your own. This work is not a self-help, self-improvement, or self-actualization program. That's actually key. I'm glad he wrote that in there. Sometimes I look at, he hosts courses in disclosure. This is a gentleman who hosts workshop group courses. So I would say this is a spiritual leader, and I assumed that his courses would be described as self-help and self-improvement. So he's writing this work is not self-help, self-improvement. I'll go on. It's not about perfecting the false self or making the ego more functional in a dysfunctional world where pathology has been normalized. As Joseph Campbell said, of course, fucking take a drink when he mentions Joseph Campbell. Quote, self-actualization is for people with nothing better to do. People who don't know their personal myth or deeper purpose in life. This path is something entirely different. It is for those who feel a deep inner calling of the soul to align with something higher. The very essence of this work is a battle between your soul and your ego. And that is only the beginning. We are in a spiritual war. More and more people are beginning to recognize and name it for what it is. Christians take a drink when he starts to diss Christians. Christians often quote Ephesians 6:12. But spiritual warfare is not only external. The real battle is fought within. That's where most people, even those quoting scripture, miss the mark. We're not just victims of evil, quote, out there. We are also conduits through which these forces operate, especially when we remain unconscious of our inner fragmentation, childhood wounds, trauma, and shadow material. Many, particularly dogmatic religious types, tend to view it all in simplistic black and white terms. They label anything outside their doctrine as, quote, demonic, often in the most overgeneralized and reactive ways. In doing so, they externalize evil unto others without recognizing how these same spiritual forces of darkness are also at work within and through them. I take issue with this. There are some people who are more evil than the others, and when it comes to Christianity, we have people who are saved with the blood of Jesus and who accept him as their savior. So in that case, it is appropriate to externalize evil unto others. It's not that they don't recognize how, of course we recognize it. I think this is a mischaracterization here from Bernhard. I'll be right back. Bernhard is a European bohemian. Let us continue. Oh, now I'm sitting low. Can't get comfortable, really. Did I read it? Okay, subtopic 3, the hidden war and the problem of evil. This is an occult, hidden war. It operates through us. Dark. I don't. Is that fair? Dark forces often hide behind masks of the quote virtuous, the quote good, and the quote moral. They feed on grandiosity, self-importance, as well as self-pity and victim consciousness. People who explain, this is just me, side note, people who explain this kind of stuff, you can literally feel it in Bernhard's accusations that he really does not have a spirit of humility. It's quite obvious. They feed on grandiosity, self-importance, as well as self-pity and victim consciousness. The spiritual work necessary to anchor the divine forces of battle against darkness and ignorance. These forces work in the most deceptive ways, disguising themselves within your own psyche. Many masters. Oh, I'm going to drink when he mentions Sri Aurobindo, which he mentions in every article. Enlightened ones like Sri Aurobindo have clearly recognized and spoken about this reality. Here's a quote from Sri. I'm going to be honest, I know very little about. So I'll read this with an open mind. Let's go. Accepting life. The spiritual warrior has to bear not only his own burden, but a great part of the world's burden too, along with it, as a continuation of his own sufficiently heavy load. Therefore his work has much more of the nature of a battle than others. I can't read that, man. Let me try this again. Therefore his work has much more of the nature of a battle than others. But this is not only an individual battle, it is a collective war waged over a considerable country. He has not only to conquer in himself the forces of egoistic falsehood and disorder, but to conquer them as representatives of the same adverse and inexhaustible forces in the world. Their representative character gives them a much more obstinate capacity of resistance and almost endless right to reoccurrence. Often he finds that even after he has won persistently his own personal battle, he has still to win it over and over again in a seemingly interminable war, because his inner existence has already been so much enlarged that not only it contains his own being, with its well-defined needs and experiences, but is in solidarity with the being of others, because in himself he contains the universe. End quote. Back to Bernhard here. This is not, quote, bad vibes or, quote, negative language. It is reality seen from a higher spiritual vantage point beyond sentimentality or preference. The problem is that many people misunderstand the word war or unconsciously project their unresolved wounds and fears onto it. I'm going to just take a side note. In my experience, Jesus brings us inner peace. From a Jungian perspective, discomfort with the word warrior, or the language of battle, often reveals a shadow issue. It may point to unprocessed trauma, including past life trauma or unconscious fears that are being bypassed. This is not about glorifying violence, being, quote, tough, or adopting a macho stance. But neither is it about ignoring the very real battle we are in, both within and without, with unseen forces that actively seek to block us from purifying, awakening, and aligning with the divine. There is also a deeper distortion in the belief that we must abandon, quote, warlike language in order to evolve spiritually. This is one of the central New Age traps that Sri warned against, especially in Essays on the Gita, where he critiques spiritual pacifism and the refusal to engage with evil. As both he and, take a drink when he mentions Rudolf Steiner, of course he might. As both he and Rudolf Steiner emphasized the problem of evil, Its reality, its cosmic function, and our response to it is one of the defining challenges of our time. And it must be recognized in the world, faced within ourselves, and understood for the teaching function it entails. Not everyone is called to the path of the spiritual warrior. However, those who are willing must be prepared to engage in both the outer and inner battles with sincerity, courage, and humility. Subtopic 4. Why differentiation is essential in the spiritual war. As Sri Aurobindo said, quote, "This is not only an individual battle, it is a collective war waged over a considerable country," end quote. Why is that? Once your consciousness expands through sincere inner work, you will inevitably come into contact with various forces and beings that are battling over humanity. You do not live in a solipsistic vacuum. This is an ancient battle that moves through us. It has reached its peak at the end of this Kali Yuga. Okay. No comment. It is therefore imperative to understand the forces you are subjected to so that you can consciously choose what to align yourself with, and not be deceived by the veil of light, spiritual pride, imposter spirits, or the Luciferic temptation, caught in the mind prison of materialistic reality. We assume that we alone are the creators of our thoughts, desires, feelings, and actions. Yet, in the sense of a fixed, independent identity, separate from everything else, is the greatest illusion and spell we have fallen under. Forces and beings from higher and lower realms, elementals, the forces of nature, collective suggestions, karmic and evolutionary currents, and the thoughts, emotions, and energy of other people are constantly moving through us. They influence our behavior, identity, and life direction far more than we realize. At the same time, gotta fucking stir it. I gotta stir it, dude. With the fucking ass. I gotta stir it, bruh. Unbelievable. I put honey in this, but I can't taste it. I definitely did put honey in this. I can't taste it at all. At the same time, you are affected by unconscious drives within yourself. Those include inner child parts, sub-personalities, suppressed shadow aspects, trauma imprints, anima or animus projections, and conditioning from your parents, ancestors, society, culture, and religion. I mean, all that's true. Indeed. All of these shape how you perceive yourself, others in the world, and they influence your desires, relationships, and life goals. So who is the real you in the midst of all this? A spiritual warrior must learn to differentiate, identify what is arising within, where it comes from, and consciously choose what to align with. Subtopic 5. I better read the title. The Call of the Spiritual Warrior in the Time of Transition. These are buzz phrases, bro. Ancient non-physical beings have been battling over humanity for thousands of years. These unseen forces still contend for influence over the human soul, and each of us stands at the center of that battle. The great bifurcation of humanity is accelerating. The splitting and polarization are intensifying. This time of transition is an initiation, and the outcome is not guaranteed. If human beings truly understood what is at stake, they would drop all distractions and focus on what matters most. Many are called, yet few choose to answer the call. As more people lose themselves in disembodiment, distraction, and unseen influence, the call to reclaim sovereignty and align with the divine and Dharma has never been more urgent. As the veil thins, it becomes imperative for anyone on a sincere path of awakening to understand the deeper spiritual realities in which we are embedded, and the forces that influence us, so we can discern what we consciously align with, both within and without. If you still believe that, quote, waking up is just about exposing conspiracies and arresting all the bad guys, or eliminating evil externally, you are severely mistaken. Nor is it about ignoring evil, taking the philosophical, quote, non-duality bypass and focusing only on love and light. All of these assumptions reveal a fundamental misunderstanding of evil, particularly its cosmic function, as a force of ignorance and what is truly required to eliminate it for good. You cannot move toward a higher consciousness until you have sincerely faced the darkness both within yourself and in the world. Anything less is avoidance. Anything less becomes a spiritual persona, a mask made of beautiful words, quotes, and ideas about what you think it means to be spiritual. Excuse me. This is one of the core problems in New Age and pop spirituality today. It also mirrors the connection, the deeper corruption of religion, and the loss of esoteric truth in modern spirituality. Excuse me. Fuck, dude. God is peace, but God is also war. No one escapes the law of ascent and descent. Not the individual and not the collective. I've explored this in my work before, and its effects are becoming more apparent and intense in our current time. It requires a descent into darkness before there can be a real ascent into embodied higher consciousness. A quote from Sat Pram. Quote, the higher one rises, the further one is pulled down. Evolution does not move higher and higher into ever more heavenly heaven, but deeper and deeper. Each evolutionary cycle closes a little lower, a little nearer to the center where the supreme high and low, heaven and earth, will finally meet. The more light the seeker possesses, the more darkness he uncovers. And we're getting to the end of this now. It's a little shorter than I expected. Of course, it ends with one of his courses and a new website, riseofthespiritualwarrior.com. Whatever spiritual warrior needs to know right now. So, and I pay this, man. I'm going to remind you. It's an exchange. The nature of true transformation is a battle, but its successful outcome is glorious, magnificent, and beyond what the mind can comprehend. That's why the spiritual warrior who serves the divine with sincerity, humility, and courage, without blame or complaint, is, and who is rooted in the true self, aligned with purpose through sincere psycho-spiritual work, does more to uplift humanity and the collective unconscious than millions who fight shadows on the wall and are unaware of deeper forces at play and disconnected from their true nature. Okay, Bernhard. Well, thanks for joining me for this reading. I will encourage you, if you find interest in these subjects and wish to go deeper with Bernhard's lectures and Of course, you'd want to investigate his Substack blog, Time of Transition. And Laura Metsu Guenther is also on Substack, and I would like to take another look at her. These people are relentless. They keep posting. They will not stop. So I've taken a look at her Substack in the past, and I may in the future again. Laura and Bernhard have a podcast called The Cosmic Matrix. We go through these things with discernment, and obviously, as Bernhard said, we make a conscious choice to choose what we align with, and that's cool, I guess. His website is veilofreality.com. I report these as a particular investigation into advanced topics, language, and concepts. I don't disagree with everything here. I think he's missing some pieces. So, God bless you. Be well. I've been Nicholas with Turtle Island Touch. Have a blessed day and be well. Thank you.